everybody? This is Marcus back again. Welcome back to Black Boy You Need Therapy. On this channel, I'm using my own experience this last year in therapy to hopefully inspire more Black men to seek mental health help. This is going to be a tough one. As you know, on this channel, even though it's called Black Boy You Need Therapy and it's directed towards Black men because we are the least likely to seek help in our community, Black women are in just as much need of seeking help, and a lot of them have the same mental blocks because of the way we were raised, because of the way we are brought up to believe negatively on seeking help. And recently, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine who I've known probably about 16 years now, she reached out to me while she was having suicidal thoughts. And this friend is the one who actually convinced me to start this channel. The last thing I was thinking about was starting a YouTube channel, and she's the one who not only gave me the idea, but really encouraged me to go forward with it despite my apprehension to being on camera and speaking about some of my deepest, scariest feelings. I had no plans to make a video about this. This is a very personal thing, and I didn't want to put my friend's business all over the internet. You see, I haven't mentioned her name. But she called me up and said, Marcus, you should make a video about this, because it's not just Black men, it's Black women who need to get help. And she called me up one day. This was about 2 weeks ago now. She called me up and she was going through it. She sounded the way I must have sounded when I called the suicide hotline. She called me up in tears. She felt like her entire life was falling apart. Things weren't going well with her family. Her two oldest kids were barely speaking to her. She had just been recently reunited with a child that she'd given up for adoption. And her family reached out to the authorities, and they basically came and got her youngest child and took her away. The last few years haven't been very good to her. She's had family problems, as I just said. She's been the victim of domestic violence. She's had 2 divorces now. And then COVID hit, which made the job market that much worse for all of us. For the last few months, her and her daughter have been basically living at a hotel. Things have really hit rock bottom. And the last straw was when her family came and took her youngest child away from her. She called me just after it happened. She said how she screamed, how she fought. In her words, her daughter was the last thread holding her life together. She felt like she'd failed. She felt like it wasn't worth going on. And she called me. Out of all people, she called me. And I didn't know what to do. So I listened. And then I did everything in my power to get her to call for help, to call the suicide hotline. We sat on the phone for over an hour. And I can't remember the last time I've heard someone sob as hard as she was. I consoled her as best I could. And she fought tooth and nail while we were on the phone to not call for help. And this is why not just black men, but black people in general, we need to get over this hang up about seeking help when we need help. I sat on the phone with her for over an hour, and she absolutely refused to call the hotline. And then we hung up, and my heart sank because I didn't know what she was going to do. She said point blank that she didn't see any point of going on. She told me that she was thinking about ending her life. And I didn't know what to do except to tell her that her life means something. I told her that her life means something to her children and that her life means something to me. And I told her that if you want to do something for me, call the suicide hotline right now and get help. And for the next few hours, I couldn't sleep. It was late at night, and I sat up, and I was scared because she sounded exactly the way I sounded before I called the suicide hotline. And I've said this before on this channel, that saved my life. Calling the suicide hotline saved my life without a doubt. But I wasn't sure if she was going to make the same decision. And then later on that night, she called me back. She called me back. And she said that she called the hotline. She said that they were sending mental health workers to her hotel room to stop her from doing something drastic. And she tried to hang up the phone again, and I said, absolutely not. I am sitting on this phone until they show up. And we sat and we talked. And after that, I heard my own words spoken back to me. She said that she felt weak. She felt like she somehow failed because she needed to seek help. And it's very difficult when you hear someone that you care about speak those words. It's hard to hear someone you care about in pain and you're powerless to help them. She lives in a different state. I couldn't go console her. I couldn't go stop her. All I could do was sit and wait and hope that I wouldn't lose a friend. But she called the hotline, and the workers showed up, and they stopped her, and they made her hand over the phone. They talked to me. They gave me a number to call if I tried to talk to her and she didn't answer. And at the end of that night, I talked to my friend and I calmed her down and I told her, you need to go to a facility. Over and over again, I told her. And much like calling the suicide hotline, she resisted me at every turn. So I wasn't able to get her to go to a facility that night, but we hung up and I couldn't sleep. I sat up that night and I thought about her the entire next day. I called her back and she said that she would go to a facility. I called her back and I tried to convince her to go to the hospital, to go to the ER and check herself in. And she gave me a bunch of excuses. She said, well, I'll lose my hotel room if I go. I'll lose my job. I have to get up and go to work tomorrow. There's no way you can make it through a day of work in the state that you are in right now. There's no way. If you go in, you'll lose your job anyway. You can find another job, but you need to take care of yourself now. And again, for another hour or more, we went back and forth until finally she said, I'm broke. I'm dead broke. I don't have a car. I can't even get to the hospital right now. I said, bet. What's your address? Where's the nearest hospital? I'm calling you an Uber right now. And she didn't have any more excuses. And again, when the Uber pulled up outside, she tried to get off the phone. I said, no, I am sitting on this phone until I see on this map that the car has pulled up in front of the hospital, and I'm not getting off this phone until you are at the front desk and you're checking yourself in. So we sat on the phone until the Uber came. We sat on the phone while she was in the Uber and she showed up at the ER. And I'm happy to say she checked herself into a facility. They kept her for about 3 days. She didn't lose her job. She didn't lose a place to stay. And by the end of it, she told me, she said, Marcus, I still feel weak for needing this. I still feel terrible, but I'm better than what I was. That was a very, very scary time for me, even more so for her. It was scary because I knew exactly how she felt, and I knew how it feels to be dangling at the end of a thread. So I'm just making this video. I don't really have much more to say, except please, if things are too much for you, please go get help. Please, if you're watching this, black men, black women, black people, we need to get over these hang-ups. We need to stop feeling like suffering makes us stronger. And if you're thinking about taking your life, please call the suicide hotline. Go check yourself into the ER now. There's no shame. There's no shame in needing help. There's no shame for trying to get over your trauma. Because not only do black women need to go seek help just as much as black men, but black men need to support them in doing so, and vice versa. We have to support each other. We have to hold each other up when we need it. But that includes encouraging each other to talk to professionals, encouraging each other to try to heal. So all I have left to say is all of us have a lot of healing to do. So let's get started.